Hello Eorzeans, I'm Lakeel Bravestone and welcome to this episode of Remnants of our Realm. Last week we looked back at Camp Iron Lake, Bronze Lake, Selma's Run, Oakwood, and Ugamaro Mines. I just wanted to add a neat little detail that I forgot to mention related to Camp Overlook and Iron Lake. Directly outside Camp Overlook you can actually still find the ruins of old Camp Iron Lake. Make sure to go check it out. Okay, moving on. Over on Patreon, our supporters were teased with this picture of where we're going first in this episode. Yes, that is the Black Shroud. And yes, we're going to Camp Emerald Moss. Camp Emerald Moss was located in the very south of North Shroud, southwest of Gridania. The camp was connected to the Fur Line, the main road leading to Kurthus. The camp had ethereal gate connections to Alder Springs, Last Hold, Tree Speak, and the Muntai Cellars, which we covered in a previous episode. Now let's take a look at those ethereal gates. Tree Speak was located right here, south of Peace Garden and east of Alder Springs. Lore-wise, Tree Speak got its name from the whispering of the tree branches in the wind, for in Tree Speak, the trees supposedly grow so closely together, their branches become intertwined. Next, we have Last Hold. This extremely dangerous area was located to the very north of North Shroud, south of Gelmora Ruins, which we covered in the first ever episode of this series. The area was filled to the brim with Givres, raptors, and warbles that could easily kill anyone who wandered in here unprepared. The Japanese name for this area literally translates to abandoned fortress. However, there were no signs of this fortress anywhere in 1.0, and it was assumed that the fortress was abandoned so long ago, there were no traces of it left. But there was one thing that hid in plain sight: Peace Garden. This location had a cave entrance that led to a set of wooden doors, closed. Peace Garden was supposed to be a dungeon in 1.0, but the doors were never opened in 1.0 because of the game's abrupt ending. We will naturally get into more detail about this in an upcoming episode of Secrets of our Realm. Please look forward to it. Last but not least, Alder Springs. Alder Springs was a small lakeside location to the northwest of North Shroud. The lake was connected to a second larger lake, Lake Tahtal. Lake Tahtal being a lake that was used by the Ixals to transport illegally logged lumber from the Black Shroud to their main nesting grounds in Selpathol in the north. Alder Springs was named for its preponderance of mighty alder groves and springs of water. The location was the most unique of the three ethereal gates, having multiple bridges over the lakes that could be crossed to finish off whatever lead quest you had active while there. Let's go back to Camp Emerald Moss, and we have to look at yet another lake, Falgord Lake. Falgord Lake was located just a few miles away from Camp Emerald Moss and was more or less just a big lake with a giant tree in it. The lake had no actual features and only served as a rather annoying landmark. Annoying because despite the size of this lake, it was surprisingly hard to actually see. Mostly because it was almost impossible to get to. Again, we are faced with 1.0's way of showing elevation and how to get to elevated areas. To get close to Falgord Lake, you'd have to first get to this light green area. And no, you could not access these areas through these stubs. You had to get to these two spots exactly to get to that area. Once up there, you'd also start realizing that there really aren't any open spaces around the lake. Most of it is obstructed by giant trees, only having the path connected to the lake at certain smaller points. And when you finally reach it, well, you get this. Anyways, that was Camp Emerald Moss and its surroundings. In the chaos that ensued in the calamity, the Black Shroud would face incredible destruction, and debris from both Dalamud and Bahamut rained down upon the land. The forest caught fire, and huge chunks of Dalamud made landfall in and around West and North Shroud. Bahamut's neural link broke off and fell down close to Camp Emerald Moss's location. Emerald Moss is ablaze. The camp is evacuated and abandoned to the howling flames making its way towards it. The ground breaks open. Most of the terrain in the lower parts of North Shroud is completely scorched. Today, nothing remains of Camp Emerald Moss, It is thought to have burned completely down in the Calamity, but there is no way to be sure, as most of that area that would have been Emerald Moss is lost between the north and central map with our good friend the loading screen. That's not all though, the entire map seems completely changed. If you put the 1.0 map on top of the 2.0 map, it's hard to find any resemblance. It would seem most of North Shroud got compressed slightly. Hurst Mill, which used to be south of Peace Garden, is now to Peace Garden's north. Falgard Lake, which used to be a very difficult place to reach, had an aetheryte camp built on top of it. The reason it was built on the water was to not upset the elementals any further in the wake of the Calamity. Alder Springs used to be located to the northwest of North Shroud and was connected to Lake Tatotl, but this is no longer the case. It is unknown if the name Alder Springs was just given to this area because the original Alder Springs got obliterated in the Calamity, but I suppose that would work as an explanation of this odd change in location. I also found it strange that when speaking to the NPCs in Falgard Float, everyone tells me that the settlement is built on a lake but never addresses the lake by name. It's obviously Falgard Lake, but the map only reads Alder Springs, and the map does not mention Falgard Lake anywhere. It's safe to assume then that Falgard Float became the de facto name of both the settlement and the lake after the Calamity. Trees Peak, which used to be just an empty area with a bridge, now looks more alive. Several new structures have popped up in this area, like the Blessed Bud, Etat's Spire, Trees Peak Stables, and Yellow Serpent Gate. And finally, we have Last Hold, and yeah, it's gone. At least on the map. There is a pretty hot theory out there that suggests that the ruins you see around Proud Creek is in fact the entrance to Last Hold proper. The Calamity might have pushed the ruins up and out of the ground. There is even a door at the top of the stairs here that might just be the entrance to Last Hold Fortress. Will we ever see these doors open? Time will tell. Now that was Camp Emerald Moss and the surrounding areas. Now it's time to look back on something that was a very big deal for all 1.0 players. Living on a Prayer. Living on a Prayer was a part of the 7th Umbral storyline, led by Archon Louisoix Levelieu, who is leading the Eorzean efforts to stop Dalamud's impending destruction of Eorzea. Now before we delve into that questline, let's quickly go through what went down in the previous questline to kill a raven. Nail Van Darnus has been spotted in Kurthus, so the adventurer is dispatched by his or her respective Grand Company leader to Camp Glory to look for any signs of the White Raven. They are met with a spectacular sight. A floating mass of land on top of which can be seen a giant beam of light aimed towards the sky. There is no doubt that Nail Van Darnus is on this island, still trying to pull Dalamud down to Eorzea. With the help of Sid and 7 other adventurers, you make it to the floating island called Riven Road and defeat Nail Van Darnus. You return a hero. And that's where the story would have ended, if 1.0 wasn't in such a dire situation and the game's reboot was getting closer. Living on a Prayer has you meeting up with Louisoix once again. He explains to you that, although the White Raven is dead, Dalamud has not stopped descending. It will hit Eorzea soon, and he is intent on stopping it. Louisoix proposes a most unthinkable plan: to summon forth the 12 guardian deities of Eorzea. Byregot the Builder, Ralger the Destroyer, Azema the Warden, Nald Thal the Traders, Nofika the Matron, Althuk the Keeper, Nemea the Spinner, Halone the Fury, Menfina the Lover, Thaliak the Scholar, Limlane the Navigator, and Ocean the Wanderer. This has never been done before, but Louisoix is adamant that faith in the 12 is strong in Eorzea, and if enough people pray to them, we would be able to wake the gods from their slumber, to protect the land they love. The Archon also specifies that we can't pray wherever we please, we must pray where they lie in slumber. Louisoix managed to manifest divine symbols, temporal representations of the 12, across Eorzea. Louisoix bids you go on a pilgrimage to these locations to pray for Eorzea's salvation. So the quest is basically to locate the 13 divine symbols and pray before them. Yes, you heard that right, the 12 has 13 divine locations. The reason being Nald Thal having two aspects, Nald and Thal. The rocks were scattered all around Eorzea at the following locations: Nofika at Stilglade Fane in Gridania, in which you meet Ida and Papalimo. Papalimo explaining that this summoning will require a massive amount of ether, and points out how desperate we have become when the civilized turned to what's almost identical to a primal summoning. Ulthik could be found near Lixpelt and Patch, north of Camp 9 Ivies. Byregot could be found northwest of Camp Crimson Bark. Ralger in Little Alamigo. Azema east of Sungate, Nald in the Milvaneth Sacrarium in Ul'dah, Thal in Azeroth's ossuary in Ul'dah, where you encounter Thancred, praying for Eorzea's salvation as well. And as you pray before Halone, just south of Twin Pools, this cutscene triggers. After this, you then have to continue praying for Menfina at Gur Ain, Oshun northwest of Camp Iron Lake, Limlane at the Limsalominsa Anchor Yard, Numea near Moraby Bay, and finally Thaliak underground northwest of Camp Brittlebark in Mordona. When the deed is done, Louiswa gives you some last words of advice before he leaves the cave. This is the last time we see Louiswa before the Battle of Carteneau and the end of an era cutscene. We see our friends praying, completing the ritual, but it failed, and, well, you all know the rest. Some of the symbols from this quest are still present in Eorzea today, though they have all more or less stopped glowing. Some still do if you're at the right place at the right time. And with that, we're at the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you want more of this. Also, a special thanks to our Patreon supporters, you're kawaii! Also, don't forget to discuss the topics of this video in the comments below. I'll be back next week with another episode of Remnants of a Realm. See you then, Eorzeans, and may you ever walk in the light of the crystal.